it's Caster, and it's time for another JJK Theory video. But this time, we got 2 for 1. Just like Gege, I've been in the lab cooking up these theories and gathering the evidence to support my claims. Now, both of these videos are reliant on evidence post the end of Season 2, so if you want to remain spoiler free, now's your chance to put this video on ice till you're caught up and ready to check it out. That being said, let's dive into the first theory. Itadori Yuji is Sukuna's clone. Now, I know this sounds similar to the theory that Itadori is the last finger or his body was strengthened by it, but I mean this in the most literal sense. He is a clone of Sukuna. Allow me to explain what I mean and why. Kenjaku. Now, while we haven't seen cloning other than that random guy in the hidden inventory arc, we do know that we have seen incarnations provided by Kenjaku, both via the death painting wounds and the incarnated players in the culling game. Additionally, we know that Kenjaku is technically Yuji's mother or father or parent. I'm not 100% sure how this works, but nonetheless, Kenjaku is Yuji's parent, which is why there's speculation that Yuji's body is fortified by Sukuna's finger via experimentation. But I think the finger served as a catalyst to clone Sukuna. After all, Kenjaku refers to Yuji as a vessel, and it's fair to assume that he would eat all of Sukuna's fingers and then Kenjaku would take his body, making him the perfect vessel for Kenjaku, plot twist, to ascend to the strongest without question. I mean, Kenjaku knew where Sukuna's mummified body was, and I think it's fair to assume this brain is pulling an Aizen and has been orchestrating this whole story since before chapter 1. Pink hair. We know that lineage holds importance in JJK. Aside from the obvious inheriting of genes and physical traits, it's also the way most characters inherit techniques. This serves as the perfect jumping off point for us to look at Miwa. She finally has a use. In her backstory, we learn when she was younger her hair was dyed black because blue is such a unique and distinct color within the world of JJK. Now, at first glance this might seem minuscule, but let's consider something. Other than Yuji and Sukuna, who else in the story has pink hair? Now you might jump up and say Jin, but I just had an entire point dedicated to Kenjaku, so as it stands, I have no faith in the validity of anything about Yuji's backstory. For all we know, it could be completely fabricated. I mean, we've seen Yuji somehow implant memories into others, so it's fair to assume that it probably happened to him. Also, I'm just gonna say, I think it's way too much of a coincidence for Yuji and Sukuna to be the only characters with pink hair. Sukuna's own words. Sukuna himself mentions that Yuji is from that era, which is a whole can of worms, but we can logically infer that Yuji is in fact from the Heian era. Now, this would make perfect sense if he is a clone of Sukuna himself. Additionally, Sukuna tells us that the experiments that Kenjaku does are sick. We don't really get any insight into this, but we could assume he has an idea that Kenny used his finger to make Yuji, and is referring to that. I know it's probably a reach, but he absolutely does hate Yuji, so it would make sense. Running along the train of thought about Sukuna hating Yuji, have you ever met someone that you dislike so much because of how similar they are to you? I mean, it's a bit of a stretch, but it's possible. Sukuna and his soul. Okay, so this is where things get really interesting. When Mahito sees Sukuna's soul inside of Yuji, he looks like incarnated Yuji. Now this could be chalked up to Yuji being his vessel, but I think the discussion about the body being the soul and the soul being the body lends itself in my favor. Sukuna is too strong and too proud to liken himself to anyone else, regardless of them being his host or not. I feel like the shape of his soul would be distinct, but what if that's how human Sukuna looked, like Yuji? Would the shape of his soul change? I know this is complex and could go either way, but it just makes too much sense to me. I mean, it really seals the whole deal for me. Let me know down in the comments if you think I'm on the money or way off base. There's just too much evidence pointing in favor of this for it to be a coincidence in my opinion. But don't click off just yet, we've got another short theory lined up. Nobara's dark fate. It's pretty common knowledge that in an interview, Gege Akutami said that at the end, the core 4, Gojo, Megumi, Nobara, and Yuji, will either all live except for one, or all die except for one. My wager is on the latter, and that final survivor is Nobara. Currently in the story, we have Gojo Sensei, who has died seemingly fulfilled in shedding his loneliness and confident in the generation that he's brought up. Megumi Fushiguro has not only been inhabited by Sukuna, but forced to kill his own sister and had his soul steeped in some weird soul-binding liquid. His sister being his primary motivation, coupled with Megumi's interference with Sukuna's actions in the current arc, leads me to believe that Megumi will go down with the ship to ensure that Sukuna is finished for good. Lastly, Itadori Yuji has been cursed to die surrounded by friends and helping others, and it seems like the martyrdom route is the best way to seal that deal. I mean, Yuji is probably holding the world record for character death flags. He says he's going to die more than Dazai. All of this being said, these circumstances lead to the dark fate of Nobara, waking up at the end of the decimation of her friends, alone and possibly the last Jujutsu sorcerer, or at least the last of her friends. Now with all of that doom and gloom and cloning and being the sole survivor, let me know what you think. If you agree, disagree, have evidence to suggest something completely different, or even if you just want to say hi. Leave a like if you liked the video, and subscribe if you want to see more content, and I'll see you on the next one.